Okay, so we're picking up in an Explorer meta where Winota has just been banned, and one of the most aggressive decks in the format is now consequently gone, and the format has kind of been taken over by dirtly red-black midrange, Jeskai Fires kind of things that don't interact super well, they just focus on doing their own thing. And there's not much that's better in the format right now in terms of doing its own thing and preying on dirtly decks than Omnath Locus of Creation. So this is usually the part of the stream or the part of the YouTube video where I tell you that this card needs no introduction, but maybe it does because this one didn't spend a whole lot of time legal in Standard because of just how bonkers it is. This was legal for maybe about a month and a half. It dominated one of the championship events, and it's one of the most powerful cards that's been printed in Magic in my Magic lifetime. So what does it do? When it enters the battlefield, draw a card, already replaces itself. It's a 4/4 for 4, already pretty good. And it has landfall triggers, and this is where things get kind of crazy. So when a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life the first time. The second time a land enters the battlefield, you get 4 free mana, which is pretty crazy when you can combine it with fetch lands. And we have a pretty good one in the format in the form of Fabled Passage. So by the time Omnath is in play, obviously Fabled Passage just fetches an untapped land for you almost all the time. You get 4 mana plus the mana from the land that you brought into play with the Fabled Passage itself. So you get 5 mana as a post-Omnath play, even on the turn it entered play. Pretty nuts. And the third time a land enters the battlefield, it does 4 damage to each opponent and each Planeswalker, which wasn't super relevant during its time in Standard because Planeswalkers weren't really widely played at the time. But when you're up against people who are playing Sorens and Obnixiluses and Lilianas and other Planeswalkers that define the mid-range grindfest that is Explorer right now, doing 4 damage to all of them at the same time is pretty relevant. So this is Omnath just by himself. We also have the package of adventure creatures, which are my least favorite card design that's been brought to Magic in my lifetime. These are all 2-for-1s just printed on the card, and they all do pretty good stuff. So we have 4 copies of Bonecrusher Giant, which on the first side does 2 damage to something and then becomes a 4/3 with upside. You have Brazen Borrower, which is an important piece of interaction, and then becomes a 3/1 flyer with, I guess, downside, but it does have flash. You have Fae of Wishes, which lets you go to the Wish board that we'll go over in a minute, and it's also just a 1/4 blocker to deal with the aggressive decks of the format. And you have Beanstalk Giant, which helps fix your mana and fill out your curve and make sure that you can do your 4 and 5 mana plays that much sooner. If that weren't enough, you also have 4 copies of Lucky Clover, which, if in play, doubles all of the adventure sides of your cards. So now all of these are not 2-for-1s anymore, they're 3-for-1s or 4-for-1s if you have a Lucky Clover in play, or multiples. This is not legendary, you can have as many as you want. And Edgewell Innkeeper, the pièce de résistance. Once you've finally exhausted all your value from the adventure sides of your creatures, if you have an Innkeeper in play, you can cast the adventure side to the creature side and gain more cards that way. So most of the rest of the deck is just around using this value to land Omnath, to play Escape to the Wilds, and do big mana stuff. Eventually, you go to your sideboard with Fae of Wishes and fetch your actual win conditions if these turn out not to be enough. So you have a bunch of lands in play, you have big Beanstalk Giant. One of the main ways to win is to just fetch Thud from your sideboard and throw a giant Beanstalk Giant at your opponent. We also have, if you don't have a Beanstalk Giant available, we have Body of Research, which is basically a 6-mana giant creature. And you can, if you have a Lucky Clover in play, you can fetch Thud and the Body of Research in the same turn. If you have enough mana, then you can just do this all at once and kill the opponent. We have some interaction pieces. We have Red Cat Melee for the red aggressive decks. We have Grafdigger's Cage to turn off Greasefang combo. We have Ugin just as a board wipe that we can tune to not hit our own stuff against the aggressive decks. A lot of decks just don't have an answer to Ugin right now. Expansion Explosion can copy Thuds. And we also have Ether Hub. It's important, I think, to have a land in the sideboard as well to fetch with Fae of Wishes, because sometimes you have enough gas in your hand and all you need is one more land to be able to go off. The worst part of this deck in my offline play has been the mana base. Sometimes I played an event yesterday. I stomped 3 matches without much trouble, and then in all 4 of my other games, I got stuck on 2 mana and didn't have a way to draw any more cards. And we just got roasted there. So I'm hoping that this take goes a little better. But overall, Beanstalk Giant and Lucky Clover are your answers to fix your mana. So this deck does incredible, powerful things. I'm hoping to show them off to you. Let's see how the deck does. Okay, so we're on the draw with a pretty reasonable opening hand. We're up against Giganta, so probably some sort of sacrifice deck. If it's Niv Mizzet, then Lucky Clover and Brazen Borrower are probably good at dealing with the early Kavus. We have Omnath without the mana to cast it yet, but I think we're happy to keep this and just have a little faith in the deck. Opponent mulligans. Den of the Bugbear, Voldarian Epicure. Okay, so this could be like Rakdos Sacrifice. This could be Greasefang. Brazen Borrower does a pretty good job against Greasefang. We'll see what the next card they play is. I don't think Greasefang plays a whole lot of Dens of the Bugbear. So if this is Greasefang and the opponent cracks the blood, then we're going to wish that we had Brazen Borrower available. But I think against literally anything else, and if this is Rakdos aggro, I think that's more likely. Yeah, so Deadly Dispute, sacking the blood is fine. Lucky Clover in play will be able to bounce a lot of their stuff. Whatever they do this turn, as long as it's not literal Greasefang. Okay, so Brazen Borrower against, like, a bunch of stuff that can all be sacrificed with Deadly Dispute, not as great. If they're able to fizzle the Brazen Borrower, then we don't get the creature side of it. They take the Lucky Clover. They don't fear the Borrower. Well, maybe they do. They have double Thoughtseize here. They leave us with 2 Omnaths. They could have taken both. We have a Bonecrusher Giant that's going to get copied off of Lucky Clover, which is pretty sweet. So I think that means the play here is simply going to be play Stomping Ground tapped and say go. And if their plan is to activate the Den to avoid committing to the board, then we will be able to punish that pretty hard. And they're thinking about it. I'm happy to just let myself take the damage here in case they play something else. Instead, they just take Giganta to hand. I think we want to develop the board now. We might not have a play next turn if we don't do this now. Point the Bonecrusher Giant at face, because if they have a Deadly Dispute to sack the Epicure, I would rather the fake Bonecrusher Giant get fizzled rather than the face one. Rather than the real one, rather. We have our own second Bonecrusher, which I think is fine. I think I just want to get out to the board now, and if opponent does something, then we will be able to Bonecrush it. Missing these lands does kind of suck. Giganta is just kind of whatever, I think. We have many, many Bonecrusher Giants. I kind of think I'm down to attack. Sure. So, opponent will take... eat the... I don't want to give them the mana from the Giganta, so I think it's important to get this off the board. And also, I want to just start draining them out. So, like, they're at 10. We have another 4 damage in hand with the Bonecrusher Giant. If Omnath comes down, I think we're in pretty great shape. It's possible that I don't even want to care about their creatures anymore. They're shocking themselves. Down to 10. We find Growth Spiral, which is awkward. If we hit land off Growth Spiral, like untapped land, then we're pretty happy, but I think... I think I just want to play out this Bonecrusher Giant again and be mana efficient. If they activate the Den, then I think I'm happy to make that trade. If they target the Bonecrusher Giant with removal, then they go down to 6. They pitch an Oven instead of play it, which is interesting. Shock in. Fatal Push, go down to 4. Okay, so they're dead. Because we have 4 damage of burn from the Bonecrusher Giant here. We're going to take a bop, but not enough to die. Finally, land number 4. We would be able to cast Omnath, but why bother when we can just kill them? Okay. So one of the beauties of this deck is that everything in the sideboard is a one of. No need to sideboard. Let's just hop into the next game. Okay, we're on the draw with a pretty good opening curve. We don't have the green mana to cast the Innkeeper on one right away, which is unfortunate, but we do have Lucky Clover into Beanstalk Giant. So as long as we don't get Thought Seized, I think we're in pretty excellent shape. And even if we do, I don't think this is too bad. So they Thought Seize us, what do they take? It's gotta be like Clover, but even in that case, we have Innkeeper plus Bone Crusher. They could have, like, Colahan's Command to worry about. That would be a concern. But we are not going to do anything except play Clover. And if they remove it, then whatever, they remove it. No, they just put Giganta into hand, and we are off to the races. We can sandbag the Beanstalk Giant a little bit. But I don't think so. I worry about Thoughtseize. If we get this Beanstalk Giant off, I think we're in just way too good shape to care about anything at all. So we're going to fetch our plains. And I think we want another... Do we want another blue source, or do we want another green source? I think I want another green source. Yeah, I think I want another green source, and we're just going to play out another Clover. And now if they have, like, K-Command, sure, you kill one Lucky Clover, I discard a card. But anything else you do is just going to get Bone Crushed into Oblivion. Yeah, see, this is what I was worried about. If we had not played the Beanstalk Giant, we would be in much worse shape here. Yeah, Bay of Wishes is almost the forks to take at this point. I think we lead with Growth Spiral, just to inform our decision. We find Escape to the Wilds, which is pretty good. If I play Edgewall Innkeeper, it is certainly going to die. I think we just say go. Deadly Dispute on the Synthesizer is absolutely fine by me. See, they're just dirtling, but our endgame is way, way better than theirs. Like, what did they really accomplish here? Yes, they drew some cards, but there's nothing on the board. Anvil would be a problem if we did not have Brazen Borrower so easily available. Okay. And I think we are happy to just pummel their face a little bit. Get our Bone Crusher Giant into exile where we can cast it on the same turn as an Innkeeper. And I think we're just escaping to the wilds. Okay. We have an extra land drop that allows us to cast our Petty Theft. And I think we do it now. If we do it now, then we lose the Brazen Borrower, because with 2 Lucky Clovers in play, if you only have 2 things to bounce, there's no way to sequence it so that the original one resolves. So we're going to lose this Brazen Borrower no matter what we do. We might as well see if there's a juicier bounce target. Like, he may just play Giganta here, and we would be pretty thrilled. If it's an artifact or something, then they'll be able to sacrifice in response, so it's probably going to fizzle no matter what. Okay, that's less likely now, although one of these cards is probably Deadly Dispute. Yeah, so this is great. Now we get to point the original Brazen Borrower at Giganta. Great. So Giganta goes back to hand. 1/1 goes back to hand. And Anvil goes back to hand. They have 8 cards in hand, and we'll probably have to go to discard. Indeed they do. Alright, and let's do the thing. These Beanstalk Giants are effectively free with 2 Lucky Clovers in play. We get 3 lands into play untapped, although we only have 5 basics left in the deck, so we do need to be somewhat careful. This still will not fizzle, we'll just fail to find a land at this point. And we have 6 mana available. How many of these are going to go away end of turn? I think just this one. Although it's going to go away no matter what we do. So maybe I just cast the creature side of it. Honestly, that's probably a little better than bouncing 2 irrelevant permanents. And if I'm going to do that, then it's probably Innkeeper. And then the creature side of this Brazen Borrower. We found a Fable Passage that is effectively dead, because there are no more basics left in the deck, so we'll just play this tapped. And say go. Mayhem Devil's a good one. Do we bounce the Mayhem Devil immediately now that we have priority? I don't think so. Our Innkeeper is as good as dead. If they ever sack this blood token, then the Innkeeper is going to die. So all of these adventure creatures will no longer draw us cards. We have gone halfway through the deck and not found Omnath yet, which is a little unlucky. And now our Fable Passages are turned off because we have no basics left. So Omnath himself is not a great draw anymore either. I think we had one Fae of Wishes Thought Seized earlier. Yeah, so with the Anvil in play, this is where we petty theft the Mayhem Devil. And hopefully they don't have Deadly Dispute. And I'm going to bounce Blood Token. Okay, so cracking the blood means that they don't have mana for a Deadly Dispute, which means the Mayhem Devil will get bounced successfully, which means we keep the Brazen Borrower. And I don't think I want to bounce this to hand, even. Because they just have 1 mana to replay it immediately. If they do, they'll have a blood token that they'll be able to sacrifice to the Anvil that's coming into play. So I think I actively just throw away this. Oh no, this was dumb. Now this fizzles my original Brazen Borrower, but I think this is actually better than allowing them to have an artifact in play with the Anvil. Yeah, that was a mistake. I had another Lucky Clover and nothing to do with it. Swing. We have 13 mana. So I'm going to play a Beanstalk Giant. And I'm going to play a Bone Crusher Giant. And we're going to flash in a Brazen Borrower on instep. I guess I play the Fabled Passage just to make the Beanstalk Giant bigger. You just have to remember not to crack it. Mayhem Devil will kill the Brazen Borrower pretty easily if they can find an artifact. If we ever find Granted, the game I think just ends. Nixilis. Okay. Borrower's gonna die, but they had to get rid of a chump blocker to make the Ob, but I guess they're just probably gonna make another Devil. Brazen Borrower bouncing the token Ob is pretty great. Do we pitch the Lucky Clover? Not yet. Fatal Push hitting the Bone Crusher Giant. Okay. It wasn't gonna get in anyway, I don't think. Do I hold this Brazen Borrower in case I draw an Innkeeper? With 2 more Beanstalk Giants in exile, I think the answer is no. So if they want to sack the anvil itself to hit the Brazen Borrower, then that's, I think, fine. That's an outstanding draw. Let's start there. We find Omnath and Innkeeper. Let's start with Omnath. Draw a card. Let's play the Ketria Triumph. Let's shock in the Temple Garden. We have 4, 8, 10 mana remaining. Let's play Innkeeper. Let's play Beanstalk Giant. Draw. And I'm gonna swing at their face, because it's a lethal attacker, and they have to block. And they'll hit the Innkeeper, sure. Not a whole lot in their deck in terms of removal for a Beanstalk Giant. Most of their stuff is Fatal Pushes, or damage from the Mayhem Devil. I think I'm happy to pitch the land.
And you lose everything. By coin.
And I think I'll decline this one because this represents another card draw. Another anvil. We do need to find a way to deal with the Mayhem Devil because a lot of our reach comes in the form of... Oh, so it looks like they have Fatal Push. They're going to sack this token. They were hovering the Omnath, so I assume this is to enable Revolt to kill it with Fatal Push. Indeed. Another Omnath's pretty nice. Let's start by cycling. Another Omnath, okay. I want to play the Omnath pre-combat so I can play the land out so it pumps the Beanstalk Giants. Another Beanstalk Giant, but no basics left to fetch. Okay. Swing out with two 17/17s, how's that? It's a lot of tokens. This is getting kind of irritating. We may lose this game. Another Fatal Push. Well, we have another Omnath in hand, so that's kind of okay. And these obs are just going to keep making tokens. Two anvils is rough. So these Beanstalk Giants are basically never ever getting in, but if we ever find Fae of Wishes, we win. Because we can just fetch Thud and Expansion.
Shake down the locals.
I think I'm fine pitching the Clover at this point.
Ahead. Plead for mercy.
How likely are we to draw one? 13%. There it is. So that ought to be lethal. Fetch Expansion Explosion. Fetch Thud. And we got there. Yeah, so I mean, they were able to tread water for a while, and we were in danger if we just continued to brick out. But most of our card draw is actually pretty good in that spot. Like, even though we drew a bunch of Omnaths, they ended up cycling themselves to get deeper in the deck. Beanstalk Giants were like 20/20s, so they couldn't be super aggressive. Eventually, we were going to draw a sideboard card and win. Okay, cool. 1-0. On to the next one. Okay, on the draw with what's a passable opening hand. We'll keep this. We have all our colors. We have interaction. Watery Grave. So I think I'm going to play the Innkeeper on one. Normally, I want to make sure I get value off of it, but I really want this Clover to resolve, and if this is Dimir, one of their main tools to deal with it would be like a sensor or something kind of effect. So it looks like we're up against Esper Control. They could have, like, March of the, whatever, the White March to remove the Lucky Clover. Void Rend. Void Rend feels like it does not belong. We could play Lucky Clover and try to ramp off the Beanstalk Giant even harder. I don't think I like that. I think I just want to make sure I get Fertile Footsteps cast now. And we can fetch a Mountain. In case we draw Omnath off the top, we'll be able to play Omnath into Fable Passage. And otherwise, next turn we'll have Lucky Clover into Petty Theft if they play a permanent out here. Field of Ruin, not looking great against all my basics. Thoughtseize. Okay, so Thoughtseize will probably take the other Clover. No, it takes the Borrower. Interesting. We did find Omnath. It does feel like Omnath is going to get countered. They don't have Absorb available. What do they have for 3 mana here that counters a creature? I guess Jwari Disruption? Let's go to combat. It's possible that they have another Thoughtseize in hand and they've just been bottlenecked on black mana. I think that's enough to make me want to Omnath here, and if we get 4 spiked, okay. It's still a 1-for-1 in that case. Great. Draw a card, it's another Omnath. If I Fabled Passage here and crack it, I'll be able to play the Lucky Clover. They could be playing Farewell. Even in that case, I have another Omnath. I think... Yeah, while they're tapped out, let's make sure we get the Lucky Clover in play. Like, I do suspect another Thoughtseize because they're so bottlenecked on black mana. And what do I want? Probably more. We have blue, red, green in hand. So I guess it doesn't actually matter all that much. I guess I want more green. And I suppose I will cycle the Ketrit Realm here. Okay, that's fine. Bay of Wishes is a good draw with the Lucky Clover in play, of course. Teferi, so if Teferi minuses on Omnath, then it's still gonna die. This way they get to untap 2. Find another Lucky Clover. Right, let's go to combat first and see if we can kill Teferi. And here, I'm pretty happy just casting Double Granted. Okay. Now I kind of wish I had kept blue, so I could fetch Dispute from the board and be happy. I can fetch an Ether Hub and Dispute, I guess. Ether Hub and Negate. What did they discard? They've just discarded some cycling lands. I think I like... Showdown Dispute. And now they have to answer the board. If they do, then we'll have Showdown plus Dispute back up for a counterspell next turn. Fairy pluses once again.
Skip to the good part.
Shock and Shrine. Untap. Okay. So we'll start by swinging it to Teferi again, see what happens. I have a feeling there's another Void Rend coming for the Omnath. Nope. Okay. Our life total doesn't matter, we might as well shock in. Gain life off Omnath. Oh, they needed to fairy to die. Or, to be able to kill this Omnath. Okay. This, I think, is fine. I still want to force the showdown to resolve. It's way more cards than the Omnath is. Okay. So we can hold up Dispute and Growth Spiral on the opponent's end step. Bone Crusher Giant represents 4 more damage. I think we're in excellent shape. I should have waited on the Stomping Ground, I guess, so I could have played the lands from the Showdown of the Scalds. I can't Growth Spiral into Dispute necessarily because I can't play these Fable Passages from Exile with it. I would need to draw untapped blue. Oh boy. This could get kind of gross. So let's, Omnath. Draw. Fable Passage. Crack Fable Passage. Fetch blue. Make mana. Escape to the wilds. Pump the Innkeeper. Play Forest. 4 damage upstairs. 4 damage from Bone Crusher, and 3 more damage from Innkeeper. Oh, sure. Yeah, cool. So, Esper Control with a whole bunch of single target removal, not really where you want to be against the deck where everything is a 2-for-1. Okay, next game. Okay, on the draw, can't keep a 1-lander. I guess we can keep this, although I'm not in love with it. I think we keep this, and the putback is Brazen Borrower, just because it doesn't hit very much. And we just hope to draw some land. This is a situation I got into a fair bit, where I just could not draw land number 3. I had Clover into Beanstalk Giant, but I just couldn't draw land 3 to cast the Beanstalk Giant. I have a feeling the Clover is going to get countered. Doesn't. So if they want to march it, then they need to pay a card from their hand to do it. I'm kind of okay with that. Or they just do it on their turn. Great. Untap land, please. No. Yeah, see, this is the problem. This happened a lot, and it's not like we're not running many lands in the deck. We have, according to my overlay, we have a 50% chance to draw land here, and we just don't. We get a redraw here by casting the creature side of Fae of Wishes. Got there. And I don't want to attack into a Wandering Emperor or a Shark Typhoon, so we'll just say go. Probably they should not have permitted me to keep the Innkeeper for a turn. They probably should have killed it on sight. Beanstalk Giant? Okay. So we need a green or a red mana. Innkeeper. Again, don't want to attack into Wandering Emperor. And we'll just play Lucky Clover. Okay. Okay. So these are all still 1-for-1s. Like, we're in okay shape. The opponent has been missing land as well. This time they killed the Innkeeper on sight. I think I want to play around Censor here. Okay. Let's get a red source. I think we just say go. Untap. I think I would rather have Escape to the Wilds resolve than Omnath. So I think we just play this into the counter. Touches the board. Okay. So we get a card at least. Still not land. We are doing this the hard way. We are not attacking into Wandering Emperor. They found Memory Deluge, which is terrible news for us. They chose pretty quickly what to do. Shock. Shock and Void Rend. So it feels like another counterspell is coming. That's a pretty good draw, all things considered. You gonna counter with Clover? You sure are. Let's just keep making our land drops as well. It's kind of been an awkward game. We'll attack there because now if the opponent wants the Wandering Emperor, they have to do it on their turn, and hopefully that allows us to resolve Escape to the Wilds. We also have another Fey of Wishes in hand, too, in fact.
You're done.
Alright. Do you have Negate? Nope. Great. So we get to make 2 land drops this turn. Pretty sure Bone Crusher Giant, the Wandering Emperor, is what we want to do. There was no stick there, so we know it's going to resolve. Unfortunately, we need to crack the Fable Passage to be able to do that, but I think that's worth it. I would love to keep the Fable Passage around to be able to fetch with an Omnath in play, but c'est la vie. Does this produce red? It does not. We have to fetch this mountain. Cool. There you go. And now you see the power here, right? Like the opponent has effectively 5 cards in hand. We have what, 8?
If you wish to surrender now, I meditate and prepare.
Aquinas finds another Wandering Emperor. Escape to the Wilds didn't get countered last turn, so maybe it will resolve this turn. Oh, it got countered. Okay. So we'll just play out Bone Crusher. We have gone through an awful lot of counter magic and removal, and we are still doing just fine in terms of value. So Wandering Emperor, a pretty good answer to an attacking Bone Crusher Giant, unfortunately. I think I just want to cast this Fey and threaten to fetch Negate. They don't have a Yorion, and we don't draw a whole lot of cards. I guess having Narset in play turns off card draw from Omnath. Okay. And if they have a counterspell, I'm happy to trade this Negate with it. Okay. Sure. We'll just hold up Brazen Borrower. Although, truth be told, I don't really want to cast the creature side of it. So, or cast the Petty Theft side of it. I'm just going to cast the creature side. Okay, that's not bad. Let's try to kill Narset now. And now we want to put pressure on them to cast this Shatter this guy, I think. So I'm going to play out one of these Beanstalk Giants. And no more. opponent has had a pretty good draw, all things considered, in terms of being able to interact with our threats. And we're still card even with them. Yeah, see, like, Shatter, we even get to draw off the Beanstalk Giant now. We have 4 cards, 6 cards really, to their 3. I think I just want to stomp their face. Turns out that's allowed. More counter magic seems reasonable. I think I start with Bone Crusher to see if they counter it. They might, if they're out of removal. Okay. Now let's cast Escape. And again, if they counter this, I'm kind of okay with that. Looks like Negate. Nope, no Negate. They kind of just helped us. Is there a way to get this Omnath into play? We have 4 mana, but no white. Yeah, that's awkward. We can't play Omnath. Alright, well, let's use our mana here while we can. Find another Growth Spiral. We will put that into play. Oh, we get another land drop? I guess we play the Forest. Threaten to flash in Brazen Borrower. Like, next turn Omnath is surely coming. Dream Trawler. Okay. I feel like Dream Trawler is probably not ideal for them. Let's start with a Growth Spiral. We find Escape to the Wilds. Okay. Let us start with Omnath. He resolves. Fabled Passage? Fabled Passage indeed. Excellent. Give me that mana. I guess I want another white source. I'm showing to be bottlenecked on that. I have an Escape to the Wilds. Find Brazen Borrower once more. What do I have in the sideboard I can fetch? I can fetch... I don't have a Clover, so I can only fetch one thing. Eugene is like a clean answer to what's it called? Dream Trawler? So maybe that's the fetch. How much mana do we have? We have 9, 10. Not enough to fetch and play Ugin. So I suppose that's a next turn initiative. This will fizzle. They'll discard a card. Ooh. No, discard a card is paying the cost, so if we bounce it up in response, it still doesn't matter. Okay, this is fine. Attack with Bone Crusher. We have 8 mana left, so we can... We saw they discard a Farewell, so like another board wipe is not out of the question. I think the play here is just going to be to, in their upkeep, force them to tap it down again. And this means that whatever card they're holding on to, if they want to discard it, then they have to... if they don't want to discard it, then they have to allow the Dream Trawler to bounce, which is what they chose to do. There's Narset. Okay.
I have practiced against many foes. Keep an
So now they have
open
no
mind.
blue mana available, so it looks like we will just be able to resolve Ugin. Wandering Emperor pretty good against Ugin, truth be told. So we don't want to play our Brazen Borrower into the board wipe that we know is coming. So I think this is fine. We find Clover, though? Can we kill him? We have a Beanstalk Giant. We can Fae of Wishes, fetch Thud. And we know they have no interaction? Okay. So just don't Pact of Negation me? Sweet. Okay. Pretty convincing win over Esper Control. 2-0. On to the next one. Okay. On the play with Growth Spiral. I don't need to do much more than that. I don't need that much more from my hand than that to be able to keep. I did play back in the Sultai Nissa days, after all. Up against Den of the Bugbear, so probably up against a Rakdos gamer. Or just Izzet. Okay, Ledger Shredder can be kind of annoying against us. Found a white source. So we're probably up against, like, Izzet Phoenix or something like that. Probably at this point it matters very little what we get. Yeah, so we'll fetch a forest, and I'm going to play the Rogran Try on tap in case we draw Omnath. We have 5 lands in play to the opponent's 2. Being on the play in Magic is great. I recommend it. So Shredder's going to get to Connive. I do want to cast Fae of Wishes both sides next turn, which allows the Connive, which I'm not a huge fan of, because it'll allow the Shredder to attack through the Fae of Wishes. Ooh, now I really want to play Clover and fetch Granted. They were able to put a Phoenix in the bin. This could be rough. Okay, then what I want to do is I want to play... We're going to allow the Connive to happen. Then play Fae of Wishes. And I'm going to fetch Tormod's Crypt. And play it. To be able to turn off Phoenix coming back. And what else? Clarion seems pretty good if defensive. I think what we need is... What we need is just cards. So I'm going to fetch Showdown. We're going to play Crypt and we're going to say go. And eventually we'll find a Brazen Borrower to be able to bounce the Ledger Shredder to hand, and all will be well. They choose to play the pathway on blue. This was their second spell. So no Phoenix coming back this turn. That's great. Means we don't have to crack the Crypt yet. It does mean that whatever's in their hand is not a 1-mana blue spell, which is pretty scary in its own right. They go to discard here, but maybe it's just a Phoenix. No, it's a Strangle. Alright, so we'll lead with Showdown, making sure to leave blue untapped if we find Brazen Borrower. Instead, we find many escapes to the wilds. We have 2 land drops to play. We can play the granted side of that Fae of Wishes. That lets the Ledger Shredder connive again, but maybe that we're just okay with that. Oh, we actually only have 1 land drop left. Okay. Well, then I should have played the Ketria Triumph. I thought we still had another land drop to make, because this is not Escape to the Wilds. In my head, this is Escape to the Wilds, but it doesn't actually let us put another land into play. Okay, then. I guess your go. We may just get beaten dead here. They could have played this on the last turn and brought their Phoenix back. And they chose not to. They have 2 Phoenixes in the bin. Shock in. Still not interested in bringing the Phoenix back. Swing with Ledger Shredder. Okay. Crackling Drake. That's kind of an emergency. We would love to find Brazen Borrower now. Instead, we just find another Lucky Clover. Is there anything in the board we can fetch that deals with this? I think our only board wipe is the Deafening Clarion, which does not do it. We can fetch an Ugin, which would not be the worst, although it gets attacked down by Den on the following turn. And we don't have the mana for it anyway. So I think we're leading with Escape to the Wilds here. We are very deep in the deck. We are pretty likely to find a Brazen Borrower, and indeed we do. We have 2 land drops left to make. We want to play the Petty Theft, and is there a use for 2 more mana after that? There is. We have to let the Ledger Shredder connive, but I think that is fine. Although then we lose the creature Brazen Borrower if I play the Lucky Clover now, so I guess not. So I think this is the play. Yeah, and I don't... play the Innkeeper. Maybe I'm supposed to. It lets them connive, though. I guess conniving before Tormod's Crypt is fine. It's after that I'm worried about. I guess I maybe should not have played the Innkeeper. Ooh, Spell Pierce. Well, they had that last turn anyway. Now we kind of have to bounce the Crackling Drake, because otherwise we're just dead to 2 spells. Could use an Omnath pretty badly. That's their second spell because the first one was Spell Pierce, sure. Ledger Shredder, what a card, man. So that's spell number 2. Spell number 3 would force me to crack the Crypt. Remember, Crypt doesn't work against Crackling Drake. Crackling Drake counts the instant and sorcery spells in exile as well as the graveyard. So we'll take 6, go to 4, and hope to find Omnath. We are halfway through the deck and have not found one yet. Oh. Oh. Well, I guess that does it. Was not expecting Fling out of the Phoenix deck. Okay, fair play. On to the next one. On the play, but can't keep a one-lander. We have run into a lot of those. This is a 6 that I think we just have to keep and hope we draw well. Keep this and use this for all our colors. Could put back the planes, I guess. No. I don't want to use this Fabled Passage until post-Omnath if I can. The core of our deck is Teamer anyway, so we should be able to cast out all of our spells. Lucky Clover with Brazen Borrower in hand is a little tricky, because if the opponent casts Ledger Shredder, we can't remove it without difficulty. Like without losing the original copy of Brazen Borrower. But if they've like sideboarded into Izzet Control, I think we're pretty favored. It's if they get lower to the ground that I would be more concerned. Okay, so they waited till turn 3 to cast Ledger Shredder. I wonder if it's to be able to cast a second spell immediately, or if it's to hold up Dispute. I don't want to lose this Brazen Borrower yet. Let's say go. Hopefully they play something else out to the board. They're incentivized to play spells, obviously, because they want to pump the Ledger Shredder. So hopefully this is just Ledger Shredder. We get to bounce both. I think no matter what they do, I'm going to bounce this because I want to be able to cast Escape to the Wilds next turn. Oh, this is great. Hopefully they play land Ledger Shredder here and we get to bounce both of them. Okay, let's make their connive decision first. Obviously, I guess we have to. This will touch the board. And these will go back to hand. Thank you very much. This does put them to discard, so if they have a Phoenix in hand, they can just drop it off here, and that's exactly what happens. So we can Beanstalk Giant with Clover in play, or we can just cast Escape to the Wilds. Beanstalk Giant with Clover in play lets us hold up Brazen Borrower again. Their most likely play next turn is probably just Ledger Shredder or Ledger Shredder again. I don't want to get this negated. I think because they're tapped out, and because we can do the Brazen Borrower bounce on... they have Spell Pierce? Yeah, let's... Because they have Spell Pierce, let's cast the Escape to the Wilds now. And I think I want another red source. No, another blue... No, another red source. Cast Escape. Hit an awful lot of land. And say go. Ledger Shredder. Ledger Shredder. Connive. And please don't play Island and Spell Pierce me. Although I guess if you do, that's not the worst, because I can just pay. Ox. Oh, baby. Okay, let's do it. Omnath you. Fabled Passage. Fetch. Green. We're gonna let them connive no matter what at this point. Maybe I should have led with the Brazen Borrower. Yeah, I probably got a little too excited. This lets them connive twice. Ox can come back. They can put more Phoenixes in the bin. There's some danger here. But this is very powerful. And 2 Phoenixes in the bin is frightening. We have 2 land drops left. We can Clover. We can Clover hold up Brazen Borrower, and then if a Phoenix comes back, we can bounce all of this to their hand again. It exposes us to Spell Pierce. I have been miscounting my land drops with this deck. I must have already played a land. Oh, I did. I played the Fable Passage, yeah. Okay. In that case, have an Innkeeper. And now that we have the Bone Crusher Giant, even if the Phoenixes come back next turn somehow, we'll have a convenient answer to both of them. So let's cast the Petty Theft while there's only one Clover in play. And that way we're guaranteed not to lose it. And next turn we have Beanstalk Giant, we have Fable Passage, all of these things trigger Omnath, we have all the mana in the world, and life should be pretty good. Fable, sure. Strangle, sure. Obviously, we've just sort of been clowning the opponent. They've been missing land drops. We draw another Brazen Borrower, yeah. I mean, yeah. We don't have a lot of gas, weirdly. I think what I want to do is just kill this 2/2, go upstairs twice, and attack with Omnath. And we have... This Omnath is going to go away end of turn, but I think that's fine. We have 5 mana available. Can do another 4 damage with the Fable Passage if I want right now. How many basics do I have left in the deck? I have 4 basics left in the deck. Beanstalk Giant is essentially free and it hits them for 4. And we'll have 1 basic left to fetch off the Fable Passage next turn. We can even choose not to find on one of them if we want. And I think I actually do want to do that, to play around drawing the last basic off the top and turning off the Fable Passage. We'll just cast Bone Crusher. And you go. Been double Spell Pierce. Definitely glad we were careful and played our stuff on while the opponent was tapped out. I'm sure they've been very frustrated holding these and not being able to play them, which is great news for us. And now we kind of have them over the barrel here. Shredder, sure. I think there are 2 Phoenixes in the bin, and they're coming back. I think they are dead. They're not going to be able to kill us this turn. We're going to be able to bounce everything. Unless they can put another Phoenix in the bin. I think they need to find all 4 Phoenixes here, and I don't think they have a way to do it. Two, sure. So now we just let them do some navel gazing, play some solitaire. And all of you are going back to hand. And you're dead. Cool. So that was just a spanking. Being on the play is great. On to game number 3. on the draw with a pretty slow opening hand. No interaction, but double Fey. And we do have the Omnath, which dodges Spell Pierce, which is their main form of interaction that they've showed us. I don't know, this is close. I think if we draw more land, we're happy because we have Omnath. If we draw more adventure creatures, we're happy. If we draw Clovers, we're happy. I think we keep this. Unless we flood out massively, I think this is fine. They need to have a very aggressive opening draw. And I think I'm even inclined to just play the 1/4 as a blocker on turn 2. Fable Passage ordinarily wouldn't be a great draw, but combined with Omnath is pretty strong. They play Ledger Shredder, that's fine. We have Beanstalk Giant. And I'm just going to play the 1/4 as a block. Opponent could attack and represent Strangle. I don't know that I would block in that case. Spell Pierce seems kind of likely. Am I casting the Beanstalk Giant into Spell Pierce? I think so. If it resolves, it's a huge game because Omnath will resolve and we'll be able to play the Fable Passage immediately. So, I guess I want to play something that's a white source. And if they Spell Pierce this, then whatever. Sure. Ether Gust. I think it's a little too late for Beanstalk Giant. Without a Clover, it's not the best card in the world. Consider keep on top. Land, so no expressive iteration, probably. So, we have the option to play Omnath here. If we do, we just get a card immediately. They could have, like, Red Cap Melee would be a reasonable card to have in the format. We don't really have anything to do with the Omnath mana with Fable Passage next turn anyway. We fear what? We fear Mystical Dispute. If it's Ether Gust, we'll really want to jam Omnath so we can play it again the following turn. Yeah. Okay. Let's Omnath it up. Sure, that's like the worst case scenario. And it's still a 1/1. Like, that Mystical Dispute was going to hit something this game. Crackling Drake's pretty good. We can Fae of Wishes to fetch Red Cap Melee to kill it. So all was not lost. We have Brazen Borrower. We don't have 3 blue to be able to cast both sides of it unless we play the Fable Passage, which is kind of awkward. Bouncing the Crackling Drake is also, like, not outstanding. I think I'm fine to fetch Red Cat Melee, and the question is, do I play it on their turn or mine? They've shown us a lot of Spell Pierce. They haven't done much, and they've been keeping on top. I don't want to give them a chance to counter it. They can connive. We still have a blocker for it. Brazen Borrower will hopefully eventually bounce the Ledger Shredder. We have another Fae of Wishes that can jump in front to block, even if the Fae of Wishes dies. So that's 3 spells. No, that's 2 spells. No Phoenixes in the bin. Biggest fear, I guess, is like Island Spell Pierce here. No, it's like Faithless Looting isn't available in the format, so there's no great way to put a Phoenix in the bin here. Them having to exile a Phoenix. So on the one hand, that's great news for us because it's one less Phoenix. On the other hand, it's terrible news for us because they chose to do that, right? So like that option was somehow better. The cards they kept were somehow better. Though this does play around Spell Pierce. Also plays around Dispute. And I think I just play the other Fae here. And get the Fabled Passage down. And I don't think we attack. I think we just try to keep our life total high. This is a resource battle that we have been losing, though. We've been the ones with single target removal. Red Cat melee killed the Crackling Drake, which drew another card. They have another Crackling Drake, which draws another card. We are in some manner of trouble. Though if we draw Omnath, we could be in pretty okay shape. We definitely keep the Fabled Passage around. Instead, we just draw land. If we recall Fae of Wishes to hand and fetch, we will have no mana left. We're probably just flashing this Brazen Borrower in front to take one for the team. Could also block with the Fae of Wishes and discard 2 to take it back to hand, although that's not super appealing. We're already really far behind on cards. I guess we can Brazen Borrower and block with both the Fae and the Brazen Borrower and hope we don't get blown out. And that'll at least kill the Grappling Drake, which is the biggest emergency. This deck does have a blind spot for Grappling Drake, it must be said. Okay, that's fine. Or land. Okay. I guess we're saying go. We can return Fae to hand, cast Granted, and then fetch Showdown of the Scalds, I guess, which is probably something I should have done on a past turn. Shock, that's scary. Okay, this isn't so bad. Stunty Punts on 1 mana. Strangle the Brazen Borrower, you got it. We find Bonecrusher Giant. By Fae, I have 4 mana left. What do I want in the sideboard for that situation? It's gotta just be Showdown, right? And hope we're not dead. Pretty good chance we're dead. What else? Clarion doesn't kill Drake. It'd be really nice to have a Clover in the sideboard. There's no way anything gets big enough to throw it at them. I guess not. Okay. twice here too. This sucks. Yeah, I think that I think this matchup should be okay. We just don't have a great answer to Drake in the board. And now we find ourselves dead to removal for Fae. Seven, 9, 11. We take at least 11 here. If the opponent has literal nothing, then it's possible for us to survive. And we would need, like, a bonkers Omnath turn. Okay, so now they can't attack with the Hall anymore. But they've gotten to look so deep for answers to the Fae. They're throwing away great permanents, too. I guess 4 toughness is a tough spot for the Izzet deck to deal with. Like, most of their damage, like, you have Strangle, you have Abrade, all of that stuff does 3. Okay, looks like we're probably gonna get to untap. How many Spell Pierces is that? 1. Just 2? Oh. Yeah, they had it again. I mean, I don't know why that took so long for them to do, but yeah, I think Crackling Drake is like a serious blind spot for this particular configuration of Omnath, but there are definitely ways to construct the sideboard so that we have better answers to it. Yeah, that kind of sucks. But okay, on to the next one. On the draw. We've been on the draw quite a lot. The hand is awkward. It has 2 mana, but we have a Beanstalk Giant and we have a Growth Spiral. I think this is okay to keep. We could find ourselves run over by aggro. Ground Catacomb does not represent aggro. Unless it's rogues. Could be rogues. Nope. Esper again. Esper with fast lands, though. So maybe not Esper Control. Yeah, Leather Shredder. Okay. And we find a land, but it's tapped. We would have loved to be able to play the Lucky Clover there. Instead, we are very behind. There's Rafine. That's terrifying. We need to fetch green or blue, I think. Yeah, the upside is just too high if we can play Growth Spiral and Lucky Clover next turn. So let's get blue. Yeah, so this is the aggressive on the play start that we were concerned about. Let's, I think, start with Growth Spiral, right? We don't have untapped land. The alternative is just play Clover. I think that's too slow. The Ledger Shredder is going to outpace our removal, so I think we just have to try this. We do hit land. So we'll be able to play the Clover. Hopefully we can draw like a Brazen Borrower or something. Stay away. Oh, this is Greasefang. This is Greasefang. I've seen this list floating around. This is my first time actually playing against it. It like runs this fair aggro shell of a game. Yeah. And then uses the connive ability to like just have the incidental Greasefang triggers. I think we're basically dead, right? Look, we were turned too slow. These Bone Crushers don't kill anything yet. Looks like they have like Wandering Emperor or something as well. Yeah, this is kind of disaster. At least we can double Bone Crush a Greasefang if they play it. All right. I don't want to let them connive again. Thanks. Jeez. Okay, so change of plans. We probably just need to kill both of those. I guess we can wait till combat. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, this was a shit kicking. They also have Can't Stay Away, so that Greasefang's coming back next turn. Oh, wow. Okay, hard to imagine a worse way for that game to play out than it did. Honest to God, though, I think that if we had been able to cast the Growth Spiral on 2, we were probably in much better shape. Like, we probably could have beaten this. But having to take turn 2 off, and then having to play the Growth Spiral and the Lucky Clover on the same turn, allowing them to connive. Yeah, instead, we just got Greasefanged. We could have played Fae of Wishes to fetch Tormod's Crypt, to turn off this possibility, but we already had an answer in hand to Greasefang, and we were falling way behind on board. So I don't think there's much we could have done. I think that this was just... There was just no way to beat this draw, given how the cards were dealt to us. Okay, next game. On the play with double Brazen Borrower, which is not terrible. It's slowing down their initial gameplay, but it just buys time and doesn't do a whole lot on top of that. I think we mull this. This is better. Again, just 2 lands. This is frustrating. I think we keep and we put back Fae. Maybe I have to put back one of these expensive cards. Maybe it's just Escape that we put back. Maybe we just can't anticipate having time to cast it. Okay. So I guess we're fetching probably green. Because if we find Beanstalk Giant, then we'll want to cast it. It'll suck if we draw Bone Crusher Giant, but it doesn't... Bone Crusher Giant doesn't hit much of their deck anyway. Immediately draw green. Okay. Maybe that means the putback was supposed to be Omnath, just because it was going to be very difficult to fix our mana. Draw another Escape to the Wilds. Okay. I think we hold the Fae. Want it on 8 cards in hand, but presumably they'll play a land. Yep. They can say go if they want. They do want. We are stuck on mana. It's kind of a cage I put myself in, I guess. I did choose to mulligan a hand that had 5 lands in it. They have these, if they play another Fairy Vandal, and then plan to draw a card, we'll be able to bounce both of them to hand with the Brazen Borrower. We draw another uncastable spell. I guess I'm just going to play a creature side of Brazen Borrower now. Or a Fae of Wishes now, to block. Yep. Make a Greasefang. I mean, yeah, okay. think in combat we're just going to play Brazen Borrower, bounce everything. Probably should have put these backwards, because they want to counter the one with... They want to keep Greasefang on the board, just for mana efficiency's sake. Oh my god. Sure. Ton of uncastable spells in hand. I don't know if there was a better way to play this, other than not mulling the original hand. I've run into this situation with this deck a lot. Like, a lot. I think the opponent's deck is sweet, so now they have it. There's no way you would do this if not to put a Parhelion in the bin. So, we need to find Brazen Borrower off the top. Yeah, maybe casting the Brazen Borrower last turn was too loose, but I felt like we couldn't just not do anything. And now we find land. But it's land that doesn't cast Omnath or or a Bonecrusher Giant. So we are dead. Rough one. I don't know about that. In both games, they did the thing somewhat reliably. Maybe I'm supposed to just have more patience, hold Brazen Borrower, or maybe I'm supposed to keep the 5-land hand. I don't know. I find that Greasefang is just a really tough matchup to evaluate. It's always tough to tell whether you played badly or whether they just had the nuts and you couldn't do much about it. And in this case, getting stuck on 3 lands forever was also a bit of a pain. All right, 2-2. Game 5. On the play with a pretty great opening hand. We definitely keep this. Opponent is on some sort of artifact-y sleep. I don't know, what is this art? I've never seen this card in my life, but it is fantastic. We're gonna fetch red on 1, of course. Beanstalk Giant will be able to fetch the white on 3, and that'll enable us to cast any Omnath that we draw. Just going to crack it now. I'm gonna try to get red. There we go. Castle Lochthwain tapped. Okay, we love Castle Lochthwain here. Castle Lochthwain means, like, red, black, mid-rangey stuff. And we can outdo most mid-range piles. We even found a white source for Omnath. That's what we decide we want. Tenacious Underdog. How would you like... do we want to Bone Crush it, or do we want to Brazen Borrow it? I think the answer... is Bone Crush it. Because Brazen Borrower will be able to answer any permanent, but Bone Crusher Giant won't necessarily be able to. Okay, so now that we have this extra white source, I think I actually am just going to fetch... Do I play out this Innkeeper next turn, actually? Or this turn? I think so. Maybe? I'm actually not sure. If they kill it next turn, we have Escape to the Wilds, though. Yeah, I think that convinces me. Let's play Innkeeper here. Anything they do to kill Innkeeper probably does not also add pressure to the board. And we threaten to just cast the Bone Crusher Giant next turn for value. Sure. Okay, so this is probably worst case, so they could have Thoughtseize plus Kill Spell for Innkeeper. They took Brazen Borrower. That's interesting. Okay. Well, we're going to take the opportunity to cast Escape. Alright. So no Clovers here. A Clover off the top would unlock this hand, of course. Very surprised opponent didn't take Escape there. taking Brazen Borrower is such a bizarre play that it's almost to the point of a misclick. It makes me wonder what they're so worried about getting bounced. I'm just going to blitz in the underdog, but they take 2 every time they do this, too. This is fine. That's an outstanding draw, of course. We have 6 mana available. This Fae of Wishes is going to go away. So it's probably just... I honestly kind of like Fae for Ether Hub and cast both Bone Crushers to keep everything around for a turn. No, because then we don't get to play this Ketria Triome. What can we Fae for? Fae for Showdown is pretty good. Okay. Yeah, I think so. Fae for Showdown. Try on tap. And these go away end of turn, so we'll just stomp the face. Apply it directly to the forehead. And then Showdown next turn, and we are off to the races. If their best again is just to cast Tenacious Underdog, then they're not adding anything to the board. Okay, so there's Chandra.
Hey. Oh, yup.
And they get to Thoughtseize
You're
me.
going
That's
down.
quite good. That's really bad, actually, for me. Probably the best possible combination of cards. But we still get to Innkeeper, add pressure to the board. They take Beanstalk Giant. Am I crazy? Like, that play doesn't make any sense to me at all. I think I like Showdown plus a creature. Yeah, I think I like Showdown, Innkeeper, Bone Crusher, draw. And we get to put a lot of pressure on Chandra here.
Oh, this is gonna hurt.
Wow. I assume they must have another. Okay. I mean, maybe we can just kill them. Probably not yet, but, like, soon. What can we fetch on our board? Does Red Cat melee hit Planeswalkers? Yeah, it does. That seems like the safest option.
Feel my pain.
And, like, next turn we'll be able to fling something pretty big at them. We also have Omnath coming. Maybe I'm just supposed to Omnath now. Probably should have just Omnath. I didn't even notice I drew it, to be honest with you. Alright, have a Bone Crusher Giant, I guess. Another Fable Passage. Alright. Let's put this one in play. We'll be able to crack it with Omnath and play next turn. They're at 8. I think they are in serious trouble. Okay. On Matthew. Yeah. Cool. So there wasn't, honestly got kind of lazy in that game. I didn't feel like there was much that could possibly kill us. That's kind of why I tunnel vision Chandra. I felt like if we removed her, there was no chance of us losing the game. Even though probably just casting Omnath was much better. Okay, next game. Hopefully this one finishes out the event. This hand is gas. If we draw any land, we have to keep this. Alright, so that informs our decision about what land to fetch. We're going to fetch red. It will let us kill a Tenacious D at some point. Hopefully we don't get Thoughtseized and have the Clover taken away. But even if we do, untapped land is still good enough to unlock this hand with the Beanstalk Giants. Like, suppose you're the opponent and you cast Thoughtseize here, like, because, of course you do, because that's what we do in Explorer. What do you take? You can take the Clover, and that's probably right, but, like, you know that these Beanstalk Giants are going to make land drops. You know Omnath is coming, and you know Escape to the Wilds is coming. Does that mean that you're just supposed to take the top end and hope that we whiff on, like, meaningful cards? They just say go. We are okay with this. We cast Beanstalk Giant. And I think we fetch blue, and then next turn will be white. I think it's probably not right to stomp face there. I think it depends on their hand, of course. It might just be right to play the Bone Crusher Giant as a creature there. Yeah, so we can Beanstalk Giant. We want to hit white with it, though. So we need to make a decision about whether we're casting Brazen Borrower or Bone Crusher Giant this turn. I think they know about the Bone Crusher Giant, so they're not going to activate the Den. But if we take the shields down, maybe they will. We can also just escape to the wilds. That might even be better. If we do that, we're taking 8 next turn, down to 10, but an Omnath is coming. I think I've convinced myself. We're gonna play Escape here. And I am happy to just throw an Innkeeper in the way to keep my life total high. Interesting to attack with the Hive and not the Den. I don't think my graveyard is super relevant here. I do think keeping my life total high is. Although next turn, like, honestly, we can probably just play Beanstalk Giant. Nah. Let's just get my red source. Or my white source, rather. Now we can play Omnath. No, we can't, because we tapped wrong. Great. Okay. That's a tilt. We can shock this in and play Omnath, but he's just going to die and we're not going to get any value off of him. So I think we're just throwing more stuff in the way. Are we just bouncing this Bone Crusher Giant as much as that sucks? We take 2 and then take 2 again and then you just replay it. I don't think so. We have a Borrower in hand that we can spend. No animating the land. I'm just blocking this. Shock. Chandra. Okay.
Anyone who stands in my way is getting sizzled.
We're gonna send Chandra back to hand.
Is it just me, or is it getting a little warm?
Draw. Alright, let's Omnath it up, I guess. Find the land. Needed that. Gain 4. Play Clover. Chandra actually minusing doesn't hit Omnath, which is pretty cool. I think we just say go and hold up a double Bone Crusher. Harvester is fine. Interesting that they have... Harvester, this is to crack the blood to enable Fatal Push. Yeah. Okay. We're just going to go upstairs. It's going to be a close race. However, we do have the Beanstalk Giant Thud line coming. 9 mana. What can we fetch? Bay of Wishes, we could get Alchemist's Gambit Thud. That leaves us with 5 mana left. I think we start with Growth Spiral. Find land. Okay. Then I'm just going to make a 10/10 Beanstalk Giant and hope that's good enough. Chandra won't be able to kill it. Fatal Push won't be able to kill it. It's got to be like Heartless Act, Noxious Grasp. If they just make another Chandra Emblem, I think we've got them. Because we can... Yeah, this is just over, right? Because now we can fetch Red Cat Melee Thud. We can attack with the 10/10 and then throw the 10/10 at their face. We do take 2. It's dangerous. But we're gonna get there. Much like Mary Tyler Moore, we're gonna make it after all. By throwing a giant Beanstalk Giant at their face. Did you ever think you'd hear that be said again after Lucky Clover and Omnath all got banned at the same time? This is a pretty good demonstration of what the deck can do. So, to recap the event, and I guess I'll do this while I go back to the event page. To recap the event, like, our losses came against Izzet Phoenix and Greasefang, 2 decks that are able to get pretty low to the ground when they want to, and can punish you when you stumble on mana. I have stumbled on mana an awful lot with this deck. However, against Rakdos, Esper, various blends of control, this deck just can't lose. Because the adventure creatures are such high value. Edgewell Innkeeper is a must-answer threat right away, or it replaces itself and then some immediately. You also have just Omnath being a house of a card, replaces itself, generates mana. 1-for-1 removal cannot beat this deck. So you either need to go bigger faster, or you need to just get super low to the ground and kill me. And unfortunately, we ran into some of that today. But I think overall, I'm pretty happy with how the deck performed. I think if we're going to improve it, I think what we need is better answers in the sideboard to wish for to answer the card Crackling Drake. Because there were a lot of times where the opponent would just tap out for Crackling Drake, and we would need an immediate answer from the sideboard. And we didn't have a Lucky Clover in play, so we needed a Fae of Wishes for a cheap answer. And we had 1 Red Cat Melee. I am almost willing to increase that number to 2. I don't think we need all of this other stuff. Like, probably don't need both Cage and Crypt. probably don't need Negate and Disallow. Maybe we don't need Shatter Spear at all. I'm not sure Ether Hub is the right land to put in. It's possible that Fabled Passage is supposed to be the land that we put into play, so we can fetch it when we have an Omnath. But overall, the deck is very powerful. In my opinion, some blend of this is probably the best deck in Historic. Just nothing else can go quite over the top the way that this does, if you can make the mana work. Maybe 2 copies of Growth Spiral. Like, Growth Spiral never really looked all that good today either. Maybe we're supposed to cut some number of Growth Spirals for just, like, removal. To stay alive longer. Anyway, very happy with this deck. If you guys try it out, let me know how it performs for you. Let me know what changes you make, because I'm interested in applying them myself. I think that this is probably what I will play, or something like it, in the next Explorer tournament. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, like it. Click like. If you really liked it, click subscribe. And I will see you all next time. Later.